Education and school are different. So, what distinguishes them? Education refers to how a society develops through learning, while school refers to one of the methods of education or place where the education takes place. Basically, school isn't the only option for humans to learn. In fact, education can be taught in religious institutes or even in your own family. Then, why education has become so attached to school? Because we can't deny when education is mentioned, the first thing most people think will be school, right? If we look at history, school has already existed since ancient times, but it's not so attached with education because each nation had their own system. Also, not all nations considered education for children as mandatory. The change of the education system started in the 18th century from the kingdom known as Prussia. Frederick the Great implemented a compulsory education system in the nation. He established schools in Prussia with taxpayers' money, and every child in Prussia was required to attend school. The purpose of this system was to improve Prussia because at that time, Prussia wasn't considered as a top dog in Europe. So with that policy, it was hoped that Prussia could develop into a strong nation. The policy worked. Prussia became stronger through time, and in the next century, Prussia would become a nation named Germany after unifying many German-speaking states. European nations saw the progress, so they started to adapt the Prussian education system. Entering the 19th century, the school system has spread across Europe. It can be argued that since the 19th century, the education system has become homogeneous. Some refer to the new system as a Western education system. In the 20th century, education has grown into school. This can be explained into three reasons. First, many countries, especially outside Europe, see education through school as a way to develop or survive. One example is Japan. To avoid being ruled by the West, Japan sent many of their people to study abroad, and once they went back, they would build Japan by imitating Western system. The second reason is about new challenges in society. After the Industrial Revolution, society has become more complex. It means people need to be seriously educated from young to survive. That's also the reason why education started to be mandatory for children. Third reasons can be traced to colonization. Many European nations introduced Western education system in their colonies. Even though the purpose was just for the colonizers' benefits, natives in the colony would adopt it even after they gained independence because in many cases, anti-colonization movements rose after the natives were educated. But it doesn't mean it's free from criticisms. Many consider the current school system is no longer good for education. Some even argue that instead of improving, the school system has killed education. The criticisms have been voiced from ordinary people until people who we might consider as experts. Education systems in most nations have similar patterns, like you arrive at school in the morning, spend hours listening to your teacher or doing school's project, later go home either to rest or doing your tasks. So the complaints about school have been expressed globally. I'm not an expert in education, but I had attended school and had seen many comments or rants about school's life. The topic about education inside school reminds me about an episode from Spongebob named Unknown Artist. When I was little, I understood the episode, but I just saw it as entertainment. When I watched after becoming an adult, I realized that Unknown Artist has a message about the school system. Even though there are so many problems in school and the episode itself doesn't cover all of them, I think it's interesting to take a dive. So without further ado, let's start. First, we need to know the plot. So, Squidward established an art school. However, he only gains one student, Spongebob. The problem is Squidward doesn't like Spongebob and he has a narcissistic trait. In fact, the first thing Squidward did before the class started was to tell Spongebob to repeat this line.
Okay, first, repeat after me. I have no talent.
I have no talent.
Despite intimidations from Squidward, it turns out Spongebob is actually an excellent student and can do better than Squidward. The tipping point for Squidward is when Spongebob can create a beautiful statue. But Squidward, with his ego, insults Spongebob because according to Squidward, Spongebob doesn't follow the rules and the book. This time, it breaks Spongebob until it reaches the point where Spongebob believes he doesn't have talent. After leaving the room to cartoon logic, someone arrives. Squidward doesn't react well until that fish introduces himself as Monty P. Moneybags. Squidward is shocked and happy because Moneybags is a famous art collector. Squidward is excited so he shows his artworks, but Squidward's arts aren't considered good by Moneybags. He wants to live until he sees a statue that is made by Spongebob. Moneybags likes this statue. Squidward, who basically wants to be famous and rich, claims the statue is his work. Moneybags believes it and plans to take the statue, but when it's taken outside, the head's part toppled. The statue is broken, but Moneybags doesn't see it as a problem because he believes Squidward can make it again. Then Squidward promises Moneybags that he will make the new one. After Moneybags leaves, Squidward tries to find Spongebob because the statue isn't made by him but by Spongebob. He finds Spongebob laments himself in the landfills. Squidward manages to confront Spongebob, so he goes back to Squidward's school. However, there's one problem. The current Spongebob is different from the previous one. He becomes attached to the book, so he can't create something that is different or not appears in the book. At the end, Squidward tells him to create the statue, but he can't do it anymore. Squidward becomes so frustrated that he destroys his art school while Spongebob leaves Squidward and considers himself as a failure. The most visible thing we can learn from that episode is about how school can kill creativity. These scenes are the prime example. After Squidward grabs the paper, Spongebob manages to make an origami from it. Even after Squidward tears the origami, it pushes Spongebob to create a mosaic from the torn paper. We know it's not and won't be taught by Squidward because Spongebob said this after being accepted back by Squidward.
How about this, huh? Remember?
That's on the book.
I don't know about school system in other countries, but in my home country Indonesia, we kinda relate to that scene because it happens on many occasions. Sometimes students are forced to do the same as in the book or what teacher have taught. Many Indonesians won't be shocked if they hear a student gets a low score because the answer he or she gave during the test was different from the book, even though the answer was right. For example, according to the book, a farmer is someone whose job is growing a plant. During the test, you describe a farmer as someone who works in the agriculture field. Of course, you are not wrong, but some teachers will consider it as a wrong answer because it's not right in the book. In Indonesia, one subject that is a presentation of knowledge based on books or teacher only is math. When you have a math test, you don't just need to give the correct answers to get a good grade. You also need to make and write the right steps. If your answers are right but the steps aren't in accordance with what you have taught, you can say goodbye to A+. The second thing I learned from this episode is about how teachers can be the one who creates problems in school. I think what makes school sucks isn't solely because of the system. I mean, indeed school system plays the part of it, but it's the teacher who implements the system. Since Squidward is the teacher, so the analysis will come from him. I found 3 traits about bad teacher from Squidward. First trait is the authoritarian type. Basically, you are required to follow the teacher even when the teacher is wrong. So instead of appreciation, you might get scolded if you correct the teacher. It might be worse in a society where juniors are obliged to respect the elderly. So when you correct your teacher, you can be seen as disrespectful. That's why when Squidward grams SpongeBob's drawing, some of us might not be confused because SpongeBob is considered disrespectful despite having drawn a battle circle. Second trait is about teachers who hate their students even without any reason. In the case of this episode, those who watch SpongeBob will understand Squidward's behavior. Squidward sees SpongeBob as an annoying neighbor and annoying coworker, so Squidward won't enjoy teaching students like SpongeBob. But what about in real life? I mean, if you enroll in some school, I don't think the teacher will know you even just a name. Well, it could be caused by 2 reasons. First, it's because the student is so problematic, so his reputation is far from good. The second reason is about their own bias, and it's what Squidward does to SpongeBob. Squidward's hatred for SpongeBob plus his narcissism causes Squidward to underestimate SpongeBob. Just look at this scene.
How's this, Squidward?
It's beautiful.
Actually, Squidward knows that SpongeBob has built a beautiful statue, but his envy prevents him from praising SpongeBob. In real life, it might be look like this. Let's say you are a black person. One day, your class gets a new home teacher. It turns out your home teacher is a white supremacist. Of course, you won't fully enjoy the class because of the bias from your home teacher. Maybe you will get more scored than your white classmates despite committing the same mistake. Maybe your white friends will get higher scores despite actually having the same result, and so on. The third trait is about the teacher who uses their student. Of course, the moment when Squidward claims SpongeBob's work as his own is the proof. Some of you might think it should be about teachers who steal students' work, right? But I think there is a description that is deeper than that. Remember when Squidward promises Moneybags that he will build the statue again? Then after Moneybags leaves, Squidward tries to find SpongeBob to be his student again. We know that Squidward's motive isn't because Squidward realized he was wrong, but for SpongeBob to build the statue so Squidward can gain fame and fortune. In real life, it's not rare for teachers to use their students for personal gain, from stealing their works or money until things that are quite serious like using them for sexual pressure. The last thing I learned, and it's heavily related to the first and second points, is school can kill your talent. If you watch the episode, we know that at the end, Squidward destroys his art school due to frustration and he quits his job. But I think not our watchers paid a lot of attention to this scene.
It looks like the excitement of my artistic triumph is too much for Squidward. Oh well, back to the dump. To the dump, to the dump, to the dump, 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 to the dump, to the dump, to the dump, dump, dump.
In the end, SpongeBob believes he doesn't have a talent. We might not see it as a serious thing because it's a fiction show, right? But what would happen if it existed in real life? Students who have a bright talent but his or her school always drags the student down, or the teachers who instead of supporting the student look down on them. Let me give 2 examples. Let's say you have a talent in sports. You have won a lot of awards and trophies, but you don't excel in other subjects. Teachers in your school think you are stupid for that and force you to reduce your time to practice sports. You still couldn't excel at the other subjects, so you keep reducing your practice time until you don't have time for sports. In the end, you are still called stupid, and at the same time, your talent in sports isn't good as it used to because you didn't improve it because you used all of your practice time for studying other subjects. Another example is about a student who actually was a genius. He can understand books that are quite advanced for his age. He also can explain it to others, but he rarely gets a good score because it's outside the book. Also, for unknown reasons, the teacher hates him, like when a science competition was held, he wasn't chosen by the teacher. During the class, the teacher always insults him in front of his classmates. At the end, he realized that to get an acceptance from his teacher, he needs to hide his talent. Just like every problem, it needs to be resolved. I can't give the solution because I think the issue is quite complex and I have no knowledge about the implementation of the school system. However, one thing for sure is, if we don't resolve the school's problem fast, the consequence will come to us. It's a fact that school has taken children's time. They need to spare their time to sit in school. Even after the school ends, children still need to do school-related chores like homework or tutoring. Also, don't forget about school's activities outside the schedule like science competition or similar things. It needs to be noted that not all students have the same condition. For example, in Asia, especially East Asia, students can spend a whole day just for school-related activities. Another example is if you are poor, you will get some disadvantages like time and money for your activities in school. So, undoubtedly, school plays a big part in a child's development. Now imagine you have spent so much time in school, but you get a bad memory, experience, or even surrender in school. You spend most of your childhood facing that nightmare. The interaction you do and receive for a long time will shape your personality, or for some it's called trauma. Even if you leave that toxic school, it still shapes who you are in your new school or even during your adulthood. Like people who have been sexually assaulted in school will have trust issues with others, or those who were called an idiot for a long time by the teacher might believe they are an idiot for the rest of their life. And if you think it only affects the one who is suffering, well, you are wrong. I don't have a background in psychology, but I think trauma can be a burden to others. In the scope of science, it's about talent that could be useful for the development of society, but can no longer be used optimally because the one who holds the talent has been traumatized by the school system. So he or she can't fulfill their potential, which means not just the talent holder suffers the loss, but also society who would actually feel the benefits, but it doesn't happen. In social scope, it can lead to bad behavior during adulthood. For example, there are many cases where children are abused because one or both their parents were abused during their childhood. Another example can be seen by the fact that people who suffer trauma during childhood can move toward alcoholism and drugs as an escape. We could agree that addiction in many forms, especially if the number keeps increasing, could be a burden to others from family to society. My conclusion for this video is that if we don't fix what's wrong in the school system, the children and us will pay the price. Well, that's my video. You can like, comment, or share if you want. Peace.